you enjoy listening to episodes in English, please skip to the next episode.
Hello, everybody. My name is Larissa Davila, and I am part of La Incubadora podcast. La Incubadora podcast is part of Economic Growth Business Incubator, a local nonprofit that helps small business owners and small businesses develop with training, coaching, and support. If you would like to get more information about EGBI, you can visit us at egbi.org, the egbi.org. And today we have a very special episode from our friends from A Better Force. It is related to to finding your voice as a small business owners to finding your voice as a small business owners because when we start a project or a business, sometimes we go through a lot of hesitation and we have a hard time protecting our business or even selling or trying to explain to other people what our business is about. So it is very important that we find our voice and we are able to both sell and protect our business. So today we invited the co-founders of the organization A Better Force, Saamiya and Sarah Seraj, to share with us the insights of the topic. A Better Force is a company that was created to empower individuals and companies to transform themselves through customized leadership and professional development programs. Their training is tailored to fit the unique needs of their clients with an emphasis on well being, equity, and step by step actionable solutions. Being a woman and a minority owned business, they have a special focus on empowering women and people of color and also the immigrant community. Saamiya Seraj is the co-founder and CEO of A Better Force. She graduated from the University of Texas Austin with a PhD in civil engineering in 2014, and after her PhD, she worked for 5 years in the construction industry, improving safety and quality standards on construction sites. While working in the industry, Saamiya realized that there was a lack of effective leadership training, which also took systematic inequities into account. She started hosting workshops and conversations around the topic, which eventually led to the creation of A Better Force. She's passionate about empowering individuals, especially people of color, and helping companies create a thriving and equity work culture. She currently lives in Austin, Texas, and is a recent survivor of Hodgkin's lymphoma. Sarah Seraj is the co-founder and chief technology officer of A Better Force. She graduated with a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering from the University of Texas in Austin, but transitioned into the field of psychology when she realized engineering problems had social and psychological aspects that were often ignored in traditional solutions. This led her to her doctoral degree in social psychology at the University of Texas Austin, where her research focused on social upheavals, cultural changes, and racial issues. Her current work at A Better Force focuses on leading training sessions, consulting with businesses on workplace culture, and incorporating the latest research in organizational psychology, especially language-based data analysis, into our suggested solutions. She is currently based in Austin, Texas, and she loves reading and writing fiction in her leisure time. So, welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having
Hi.
us.
Great, great. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And in the last few months, we have been having conversations about the work that A Better Force does. And I'm really, really happy that we were able to schedule this episode because I think the information that that you all provide is very valuable for small business owners. And so, welcome, welcome. And can you please tell us a little bit more about your story and how do you decided to open your company?
Yeah, so early on in our engineering careers, my sister and we started looking at leadership courses to complement our technical training. One of the things we saw is, the problems that we were seeing at work or on construction sites, it had solutions outside of engineering with more effective communication or management. But then when we started looking at leadership courses, we were a little disappointed because we felt that they had feel-good messages that were effective in the short run, but I didn't think that they would lead to long-term effective change. And so the other thing we also noticed was the trainings were not catered to, BIPOC or women of color, because we often have unique barriers or unique structural barriers in our careers and personal life. And so some of the solutions that the leadership trainings were offering were impractical. And so from that, we decided as immigrants and as women of color, we wanted to bring our unique voice to the leadership and training world. And that's how A Better Force got developed. And what our vision is we want to serve underserved communities with practical and scientific and data-backed solutions.
Great. And well, great that you developed. Not so great that there's a need to do this, right? But it's as you say, it is really important, and we also see it in big corporations, and then we also see it in mid-sized and small businesses, even though they're not as big. The inequities and the discrepancies can be a lot harsher because they're like in smaller groups, but it is very important that there's more awareness of it. Can you tell us a little bit of the services that you offer?
Sure. So we offer one-on-one coaching for individuals and business leaders. We do customized workshops for companies, both small, mid-size, and big corporations. And finally, we do management and data consulting to empower businesses. In terms of some of the topics that we focus on, our personal development topics include building confidence, overcoming fears, understanding core values, and other tools for crafting a better life. And as Saamiya mentioned, in all of these trainings, we do have an equity focus where we essentially incorporate the experiences of different underserved groups. On the professional side, we offer training on effective time management, ethical leadership, and creating an engaged and more motivated workforce. And then we wanted to mention some of our signature workshops because that's our bread and butter. Our signature workshops, they're on anti-racism and equity, and they include how to be a better, more effective anti-racist ally, finding your authentic voice as a person of color, which is kind of our focus during the podcast today, and also learning how to counter Islamophobia. I mentioned data consultancy earlier, and through that, we review proposals and company policies to help businesses be more equitable. And we love this part in particular because while training is super important, so people learn what they need to do, real long-term change can't really happen until the companies work on incorporating those lessons into their business practices.
Yes, it's very important, and and sometimes as a leader you want to, so as a leader of your own business, as the business owner, you want to provide your group with with a safe space to thrive. And sometimes if you don't have the proper training, it can it's difficult, right? So it's good that leaders are investing their time on learning how to be better leaders and how to be inclusive and in creating the safe space where people can thrive, right?
Related to what you're saying, Larissa, I think that also when leaders give the time and space to have more inclusive spaces, people feel safe in that company and they're more likely to stay for long term. And that ultimately saves companies money because, if you lose employees because they don't feel safe, you're losing so much knowledge and in-house knowledge, and you have to spend money again training new individuals. So I think the business case for having these types of services are and these types of spending the effort on it is really clear.
And also helping, so once we learn to use our voice, it's two parts, right? We need to learn to use our voice, and have to learn to create the safe space for our employees to use their voice as well, because you may have very good talent who may quit because they don't feel safe, or you could have very good talent who won't use their voices because they don't feel comfortable, right? So if you hire people for their brain, for their ideas, for their input into the company, and as a leader you don't know how to get that, provide the safe space for people to share their voices, then I think you're also not getting 100% of your investment, right? So it is very strategic for business owners to also pay attention into this, right?
Exactly.
And so one of the questions that I have for you today is, why is it so hard to be assertive as a minority, as a person of color, as a woman? Why is it so hard to be assertive for your own business?
That's actually a great question. And the answer is kind of the harsh reality of our situation. Because when we speak up as women or as women of color or as immigrants, oftentimes we're dismissed or not taken seriously. I've lost the number of times when, Black or brown women have spoken up only for someone to say, oh, are you sure that happened to you? Are you sure you're not misunderstanding? Or worse, they'll try to make excuses for the person who's causing the harm, dismissing saying dismissing things like, oh, I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it. They're a very nice person. And so those are some of the things we try to teach in our courses and workshops, that you can still be nice and still have bias and still not be inclusive. And so when the reality of our world is that our society is trying to erase our voices and erase our experiences, it gets hard to constantly speak up because it's like going against a tide. And research has shown, because women of color are constantly under stress, it leads to adverse health outcomes for us. Things like having high blood pressure or developing heart diseases and things like that.
Exactly. I was part of a group a few months ago. I was taking a training, and I was part of a group, and they were all really nice. But whenever I gave my opinion, they said, "That is great. We're gonna put it on the appendix." So I kept on giving my input, and I knew it was good input, but I saw that my counterparts didn't. I don't think that they heard what I was saying, so, or they didn't even take the time to do it. So they just kept on saying, yeah, we're gonna add that to the appendix, and then if we need it, we're gonna bring it up. So by the end of the training, I was like, why would I even talk if they're just gonna put it onto the appendix? But I don't think that they meant any harm by it, and we weren't gonna last such a long time that I didn't see the need of making a point of telling them, hey, everything I say, you're gonna put it on the appendix or what? So I was just like, I'm not gonna waste the time on it. But so it's little things like that people don't to spend the time to figure out why they don't see why they don't feel like it's relevant, that could jeopardize their whole project. So people will just shut down, right?
Yeah. And it's difficult to speak up, especially if you're the only person of color in the room and everyone else is seeing something differently. A personal experience that I had recently is I was going through a cancer treatment, but it took a long time for the diagnosis because my pain just kept getting dismissed. And research has shown that often when women of color talk about their pain, it gets ignored. Or, I'm a young mom, and so when I would go to doctors with symptoms, they would just say, oh, these are just postpartum hormones. And it took 15 months for me to get my cancer diagnosis. And by that time, the cancer had spread everywhere. And so, sometimes for, women of color, learning how to speak up and use our voice and keep advocating for ourselves can be a matter of life and death. It was for me.
That is harsh, but that's the reality, right? And there's several books. I've heard of several books that talk about how the pain of women and people of color is dismissed. And I don't know if you have any literature that you would like to share with us in the future, but if you have any, please send it to us, and we can share with the people that are listening to this episode so that they can read a little bit more about it. Um,
Um, Larissa, I was just thinking, a colleague of mine, Dave Markowitz, he's a language-based researcher, and he actually did studies of physicians' notes at hospitals, and he looked at the same physician, how they talk about their patients who are people of color versus, let's say, a white man, and use some of the things that Saamiya was talking about, dismissing the pain of women. He actually, using data, saw that in this research, and it was like thousands of doctors' notes. And it was really validating seeing that, because you can't really look away from the data. So yeah, essentially what would happen is that when let's say a man was talking about the same illness, they were taken seriously, they were given medication, but for a woman, especially women of color, it was more likely to be seen as like, oh, they're like, um they're seen as more emotional, or like maybe not experiencing as much pain, and yeah, it was really like alarming seeing the statistics.
yes,
But
because
happy
as
to share
Samia,
that article with you if you'd like.
yes, because as says, it could be a matter of life and death. I saw, I read about the studies that you're saying. I'm pretty sure that you have more, but I'm gonna share right now a book that I read by Soraya Shemali, and her book is Rage Becomes Her: The Power of Women's Anger. And in that book, she speaks about the statistics that you're giving. It may not be the same article, but it's another one that does provide details on how the sometimes pain will be dismissed as trying to call attention, or trying, or just being weak, and not thinking that the pain is real. But yeah, that's one of them. And if you could share more information about it, then we would appreciate that. Can you give me a couple of tips to overcome the fear of speaking up to clients, or maybe tips to overcome the fear of just speaking up and advocating for oneself on what you're feeling and your thoughts and your what you're experiencing?
Sure. And first, I do want to validate the fear, because the fear is real. Because as BIPOC or immigrants, speaking up can sometimes cause you to be put into trouble. Some people get fired because they speak up in their workplaces, and people don't like people who move against the tide, right? And that's why, and I mean, this is kind of what we were talking about. That's why it's so important to believe in yourself, because like all people won't people will you will receive backlash in these situations. But if you believe in your work and your integrity, when someone questions you or your work, you can counter it, because you know the quality of your work, and that you gave it your best. It also really helps to find your tribe, and this is essentially having a supportive community of allies who will help uplift you, validate you, and help you when people treat you poorly. And this helps because, when you're constantly facing backlash, sometimes people start questioning themselves, like, oh, was I in the wrong? Maybe I did misunderstand something. Like, if you're constantly hearing those things, it's normal to start questioning yourself. But that's why having a community of people who help you, uplift you, and validate you is really important. The other thing that really helps is practice. Like, if someone is breaking your boundaries or not treating you poorly, then you might need to have a difficult conversation. But knowing what you're going to say in advance really helps, because when you're in the moment, it's easy to forget the words in a charged situation. And that's why we always recommend with our clients, like, for this difficult conversation, practice with friends, practice in a mirror. Then during the situation, it'll be like second nature. Yeah.
And we actually go through that in our workshop. We have like a list of like helpful phrases and strategies that you can use. And these are very simple sentences to help interrupt the bias, right? For example, saying, can you explain what you meant by that? Just something to speak up, because a lot of times, as Sarah was saying, in these situations, we tend to freeze up and we tend to become silent. And so having simple, effective phrases that interrupt the bias and practicing those ahead of time can help you to not stay silent.
That is really good. And I'll give you in my case, when I've been working on being assertive for probably about more than 10 years, because I realized that so I what I would think was, oh, he was really hurtful, or she was really mean to me. But so by me staying quiet and not saying anything, this person is going to know that they were inappropriate, and next time they're going to think it twice before being hurtful. And and instead of decreasing the amount of aggressive or passive aggressiveness, it started to escalate. And by the time I tried to assess or try to fix the issue, it was already too big to be just left, to not have a like very, very big, difficult conversation. So by talking to mentors and by reading and by talking to psychologists, what I learned was that whenever I saw that something happened and I didn't have the way to control it, what I would have to do is understand that people are cyclical. So if they did it once, they're going to do it, more than likely they're going to do it again and again and again, and every time it's going to get bigger. So what I would do is, whenever I felt that something was hurtful or it stayed with me, the next time, like you said, I would have a comeback for that. And as you said, so explain to me what you meant by that, or just something as I started by using really short sentences. For example, what you said is hurtful, or what you said is inappropriate, or I don't appreciate what you said. And why? Because it's racist, or because it's so just, if I try to give a big explanation, then my feelings, my emotions can take over. And so what I do is I do short sentences that say, what you said hurt, or what you said was uncalled for. And with that, I would I just made so I just set a precedent to that person, that what they said was hurtful. And in business, it doesn't matter if they're your client, your provider, your employee, or your boss. You need to say something, because otherwise this person is going to come again and again and again. Do you have any insights for that?
I think boundaries is very important, right? Because when you allow someone, anyone, whether, as you were saying, whether it's someone that you work with, or your client, or even your loved ones, if you don't place boundaries, it's going to start depleting your energy levels. It's going to start, people, when they do things against their will, you sort of start to burn out. And so we actually have, a separate workshop on boundaries, and it's actually coming up, in the holiday season. Boundaries are a very big issue. So we have a workshop on boundaries that sort of helps people understand why boundaries are necessary. And then we go through the steps of how to place a boundary. And that's to kind of get very clear with yourself why you're placing the boundary. Because first, if you get clear on why you're placing the boundary, you can sort of overcome the guilt that comes. And then you also have to write down the consequence if the person violates the boundary. Because let's say you place a boundary, but the person always, violates it and crosses over, and you don't have any consequences for that person, then they're going to keep violating it. So it's important to set the boundary, get clear on why you said it, and then write down, if this person violates this boundary, then what are the consequences? And it can be, I'm not going to be on a project with them, or I'm not going to take this client on for other services, or just something to ensure that your dignity is not violated constantly, especially in matters of sexism and racism and discrimination
And ageism, right?
and ageism. Yes.
Yeah.
Another point related is I know this is going to sound cliche, but believing in yourself. Because when someone is treating you poorly, sometimes as immigrants or women of color, our instinct is to blame ourselves. Like, oh, maybe I should have phrased it better, or maybe I could have done something differently. Like I've suffered from this. My instinct is constantly to blame myself. But if you know yourself and your worth and your own work ethic, you're not going to question yourself when you know you did everything you could. So it's really important to believe in yourself and love yourself and know your worth, so that you can stand up for yourself in these situations. And it does get better with practice. The more you do it, the more you get courage from yourself.
Yeah. And you know what? The fear of losing a client or losing a provider or losing a job should be overcome, because it's better to not have that client and use the time and the energy to find better clients than having to deal with someone that doesn't respect what you do, your trade or what you do. So it's always best to speak up. And for the most part, you will find that people didn't know that they were being hurtful, right? So it's always better to speak up and not to be, and to trust, as you say, trust your worth, trust the value of your products, your services, your skills, your talents, and be very assertive in the early stages and say, you know what, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah. What would you like, ladies, like for people that are listening to us? What would you like them to take away from today's episode? What is something that you would like them to take with them from this conversation that they will use to have better quality of life, better quality of business, better quality of clients?
I'm going to echo something that Sarah said, and that's to believe in yourself. In this world, your identity and your voice and your unique perspective is important. And so if you don't tell your story, people are going to miss out. You have a gift to share with this world, and so share it. And it will also give other people the courage to open up about their experiences. When they see you, battling against the tide, being authentic in your voice, they will find the courage to also share their stories. And so you create like a ripple effect. And, when we share our authenticity, when we share diverse voices, that's when the world truly becomes more beautiful.
Thank you. And Sarah, what would you like people to take with them?
Yeah, I feel like Saamiya shared like my sentiment perfectly, but to echo what she said, like you deserve to tell your story just as much as anyone else. And that's kind of why my sister and I opened our business, because we want to help uplift other women, other people of color, and other immigrants. We don't the demographics that we serve, we don't see enough of their messages, and we need more of it. And if no one else is uplifting you, we will. And I think it's also important to find communities that will support and uplift you, like EGBI. EGBI and Larissa have been champions for our organization, and you can find other organizations and communities that will help you and validate you and give you the space you deserve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Where can we find you, ladies?
You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and typically, if you search a better force, you'll find us. But you can also contact us on our website, which is betterforce.com. And honestly, we'd love to hear from you. And we can always do a 30-minute free consultation with you to see if any of our services would be useful to you. So feel free to contact us. And we have other free services that you can utilize as well.
And
Okay,
we have a free book club to uplift authors who are women of color, so we'd love for you to join that.
absolutely. So who should reach out to you? Would it be, so what is the type of client that would benefit from you? Is it a professional, business owner, an employee, someone in the a student? Who can reach out? Who would benefit from your services?
I think we have a very wide spectrum of clients, both individuals and business owners. Anyone who thinks that they want to learn more, about how to find their authentic voice and live their life according to their values, I think would benefit from our services. So yes, if you're an individual or a business owner or a business itself that wants our training, we'd be happy to customize our services for you.
For
Uh,
businesses, typically their businesses who are looking to make their workplace more equitable and have better workplace culture, who take our trainings.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, for your time. It's a very powerful conversation, and it is a conversation that we need to have. As small business owners, we need to find our voice and we need to learn to create the space for our stakeholders to also speak up and provide and say their thoughts, be validated, right? So thank you very much for your time today, and for the people that are listening to us. We hope that you found this episode useful. And if you know of someone who would benefit from listening to this episode, please share the link with them. And remember that La Incubadora podcast is part of the Economic Growth Business Incubator, a small business incubator in Central Texas that offers training, coaching, and support to small business owners with barriers to achieving success. If you would like to learn more about our services, please visit us at egbi.org, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.